It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Thanks for joining us, folks. I'm Sam Lesante, and for those of you who are tuning us for the first time, welcome to The Sam Lesante Show. But if you want to know more about us, you could go to our website, ssptv.com, or you can Google us or go to YouTube and download SSP TV, subscribe, and you'll see all the shows we do. And the reason why I say that is this show is going to be a show that's very, very important. November 6th is a day that's going to affect your life and probably all of your lives and children's life for a long time. What day is that? It's Election Day. I think this is probably going to be one of the most critical elections, folks, that we ever had. So today we'd like to inform you about information, facts. You know, facts sometimes are ugly things, but facts. My guest today is Congressman Lou Barletta. He is running for U.S. Senate in the state of Pennsylvania. No stranger to many people in the state of Pennsylvania. Lou has been all over the state of Pennsylvania. But today, Lou is going to discuss some very important things. First of all, Congressman, thanks for coming on the show.
I'm good to be here.
It's always nice to see you. You know, for those people, you're extremely well known in different areas. But some people heard the name Lou Barletta. They don't know your background, your family, etc. Let's go back in history a little bit, okay, and talk about the Barletta family and how you evolved, etc.
Sure. My father was one of 7 brothers. They were in the road construction business. They started in sand and gravel, and then they got into ready-mix concrete and asphalt paving. And those 7 brothers had like 30 or 40 of us who had to work in the family construction company. I joke that was before there were child labor laws that would have stopped them from how hard they made us work, but it was a great experience. Sam, wanted to play center field for the New York Yankees. I didn't want to get involved in politics growing up. I didn't like politics growing up. Went to school, actually studied elementary education. Went to Bloomsburg State College at the time. Married my wife, Mary Grace, while we were in college, and it was there in my 3rd year that I had an opportunity to try out with the Cincinnati Reds. I know it wasn't the Yankees, but I thought I'd get traded to the Yankees later on. Mm-hmm. Left school, went down to Florida, played baseball, tried out with the Reds. They claimed that I could not hit a curveball. That was a problem for them, so they sent me home. Went back to work for the family construction company. And I have 4 daughters, and this was really a low period in my life at the time. I felt like a loser. I felt that I had failed at everything I did. I went to college, didn't graduate, went down to play baseball. I didn't make it. Ended up right back working for the family construction company. And when you come from a big family, and you're the one who's going to go off and try to make it big somewhere, and you have to come home with your tail between your legs. It's pretty humbling. Couldn't go back to school. Like I said, I have 4 daughters. I had 2 at the time because I needed the money. I would joke that we weren't even living paycheck to paycheck. We were living paycheck to Thursday. Uh-huh. My wife would correct us and say we were living paycheck to Wednesday. Yeah. So I needed a job. So had to work, and one day I got a card in the mail, postcard, for $29.95. You can stripe your own parking lot, paint the lines in your own parking lot. I went home, told my wife about the great idea I had of quitting my job and starting a line painting business. I joked that she should have left me that day. She asked me, what do I know about line painting? I said, I don't know a lot. There's yellow lines in the middle, white lines on the edges. She said, we don't have any money. I showed her the postcard. We only needed $29. So I did quit my job, and for $29.95 you get 6 white aerosol cans, you get 6 yellow aerosol cans, and a little machine to stick the can in, and walked into a local bank, told them about my idea, and I walked out with a $2,500 line of credit, which was enough to buy a real paint machine. We made a little money with that, bought another one, made a little money, bought a truck, and in 5 years, our business grew to be the largest in the state of Pennsylvania. When I sold the business, when I became mayor of Hazleton, it was the 6th largest in the country. And I tell that story because that couldn't happen today. You couldn't just walk into a bank because you think you have a good idea and walk out with a loan or a line of credit. Because of Washington, because of regulations, that would stop any business from starting up. So that was really when I started paying more attention to government, and I began, as we grew our business, focusing more on regulations.
Going back to the Barletta family, okay, I always, I tell the viewers, no matter what political affiliation, it doesn't make any difference to me. I always try to talk about substance of the people, because we all come from roots, we come from family values, okay? I remember Angela Park, where the Barlettas put this park together. And this was a big thing for many, many children, okay? And all your uncles, including your father, were there. You worked there, I'm sure, as a kid, as all the Barlettas did. Sometimes you didn't have enough money to go on the rides. Well, you had free rides. You had, they were always giving, okay? Now, I say that only because when you grow up as a giver, and you had in your life, you were a city councilman, okay? And then you became congressman. So I think substance sometimes, Lou, is very important. So you had your wife involved in the business, correct?
Correct.
So you saw that. You saw what your family was doing. Okay, now it comes to you. You're doing well. So now you become a city councilman. Now, why did you want to become city councilman?
Well, in Hazleton, as you know, we were growing our business, raising our family. The politics in Hazleton wasn't very good. The mayor and city council were fighting all the time. The headlines in the newspaper was very negative. Businesses really didn't want to be here any longer. Many moved out, and I had gone to the politicians and said, why can't you run government like a business? And basically, they told me I was naive. I didn't know what I was talking about, and that's not the way it's done here. And I got mad and ran for city council. And once I got on city council, I realized I disliked the politicians here even more than I thought I disliked them. I needed to be the mayor because the city was financially in trouble, and ran for mayor and served 3 terms.
So everything you did as a councilman, because it goes back to history, okay? Before I would vote for anyone, I want to know what the substance of the person is, not the blah blah that's going on, and make you think you're the greatest. When you were mayor, you accomplished many things in the city of Hazleton, okay? So then, why then go into Congress?
Sure. So, here in Hazleton, as we were, basically we were bankrupt. We had a $1.2 million deficit in Hazleton, and it was a budget deficit, and it was only a $7 million budget. There were illegal contracts with the labor unions, and we had worked together with the unions. We could have went Act 47, and that basically allows the state to come in and take control of the city. And I didn't want to do that, so I got together with the unions. I said, let's work through this together, which we did, to their credit. And in 2 years, we not only wiped out the $1.2 million budget deficit, but we had a $500,000 surplus. Businesses and people were moving back into the city. Things were starting to look good, but then we noticed another problem here as we started seeing absentee landlords, overcrowded apartment buildings. We started seeing some gangs moving into the city, more violent crimes. Our population in Hazleton grew by 50%, which is a huge growth for a city, but our tax revenue stayed the same. So imagine having 50% more people, but not any more revenue to provide services to them. Well, you can imagine what was happening. It was hard. I didn't have enough police officers. We didn't have enough code enforcement officers. Our hospitals were also affected during this time. Normally, if you went to the emergency room here in Hazleton, you might wait maybe 20 minutes to be seen. Now people were waiting 6, 7, and 8 hours as people were using the emergency room for primary health care. I remember we arrested this guy for selling cocaine on a playground that I grew up on, to little children. We had him in City Hall. It took our detectives 5 hours to determine who he was. He had 5 Social Security cards. We had no idea who we were dealing with. It was very obvious to us through investigation of some of the violent crimes that were happening here, that we had an illegal immigration problem here in Hazleton. We are 2,000 miles away from the nearest southern border. It's not a city that you would expect to have that kind of problem, but we did, and I had to deal with it. And it was really, I became, I sort of had an attitude about Congress and Washington, because I had gone down and asked for help. I remember December of 2005, I met with the Department of Justice, told them about our illegal immigration problem, told them about the gang problem that we were having, asked for help. I didn't create this problem. I needed help dealing with it. And they were great. They brought in all these experts to talk to me. And then at the end of the day, they gave me this nice coffee mug, a lapel pin, a pat on the back, and sent me home. They weren't going to do one thing to help me. Very shortly after that, May 10th, 2006, a day I'll never forget, a young man named Derek Kishline, 29 years old, father of 3 little children, was working on his pickup truck, and he had some words to say with Pedro Cabrera, who was the head of the Latin Kings. Cabrera was in the country illegally and arrested 5 times in New York and other places, New York being a sanctuary city. Cabrera goes in his car, gets a gun, sticks it between Derek Kishline's eyes, and shoots and kills him. We spent half of our yearly budget in overtime in the police department in catching Cabrera and his buddy. And I had to sit down with Mr. and Mrs. Kishline when she wanted to know why. Why was her son gone and this man was still in the country? Why is the father of her grandchildren gone and this guy was still here? And I had enough. I had nowhere to turn. I wrote the first law in the country in dealing with illegal immigration, and I did it to protect the citizens of my town. It became a national story. So I realized how broken Washington was, because nobody in Washington came to help. Nobody wanted anything to do with me. And so I realized that I can do more, especially on an issue like this, if I went to Washington.
Okay, so Lou, you see things firsthand, okay, and I recall that, okay, and it's heartbreaking, all right. So now what happens is, because you're trying to do what I think is the right thing, and here again, put your political party aside. I'm talking about Lou Barletta and the substance that you come from. Now, when you start doing that, and I now that I've been around a long time and done over 2,500 shows, I see how terrible the swamp is in Washington. And believe me, if our viewers only realize how very bad it is, they'd be shocked. But that's another story. But now what happens, Lou, is you become tagged as you're anti-immigrants, okay? You do not want the immigrants. Of course, they didn't do that to help you because they want votes. They don't care what happens, in my opinion. So now they say you're anti-immigration. You don't like Hispanics, you don't like this. Little did they realize that you have Hispanics in your own family, okay? But so how does that make you feel when you hear that stuff, okay? And you're prejudiced, okay? It's not true.
Well, what it is, Sam, it's a way for other politicians to shut you down, to get you to stop talking. And you know, I especially here in Hazleton, where people here who knew me, you know, I am probably the most pro-immigrant voice in the country, because I'm standing up and protecting legal immigrants, people who waited, who came to the United States legally for a better opportunity. I want them to have a better job. I want them to earn more money. I want their children to have a better life and a better education. We are cheating them by allowing people to come into the country and take their jobs and make them work for lower wages. So anyone that says, when you stand up against illegal immigration, that you're anti-immigrant, they either just want to win another election, or they simply don't understand the truth. And it's a way to try to shut politicians up, and that's why most politicians won't deal with the issue. And that's why the country has the problem we have right now, is because we have weak politicians in Washington who won't stand up, who are more worried about getting reelected than doing what's right for the American people.
All right, so you go, before I take a break, you go to Congress, and I know you've been on the show many times, and you know, you didn't fall right into the swamp, okay? What you did, you even fought your own party, okay? I remember many times you went down with an objective. So now, did Washington change Lou Barletta?
No, Listen, I didn't go to Washington to make friends. I have enough friends at home. I like my hometown. I like my bed. I like my wife. I like my grandchildren. I don't like what I see in Washington. I am the first one out of there on a Friday, Sam. I don't want to stay there. You know, we have people who have gone to Washington and simply just want to stay. And they tell you what you want to hear. They'll say all the right phrases. In fact, they teach you what to say, what terms to use, what words to use, what words not to use. Why? Why fake the American people? I mean, the frustration in this country, and I was one of them, as somebody who went there to change Washington and saw, you know, politicians saying one thing in front of a camera and having no intention at all to fixing any of these problems. And I believe we need term limits. I think people go to Washington way too long, and they forget where they come from. And you know, they like to be in Washington, and I think there should be a term limit. I think 12 years is enough for a United States Senator, 12 years and go home. And I think 10 to 12 years for a House member is enough as well.
Folks, I'm talking to Congressman Lou Barletta. November 6th, it's a very important day for you in your life. So whatever you do, please understand the facts. However, you know, sometimes I always say, picture this, just picture this. Someone in your home gets seriously sick and they require a surgery. It's serious. So what do? You go to your family doctor and the doctor says, well, let me tell you, let's look at this particular person, and you proceed to do as much homework as you can to find out who is the best doctor to operate on your family member. So you do your research. You don't care what the person's name is. You don't care what his nationality is. You're only concerned about facts. Is he the right, or she the right person to have that procedure on one of your family members? It's the same thing for Congress. Look at what has happened in this country today, where people come in, you gotta vote straight Republican, straight Democrat, don't even know the people, don't even know them. Or if it's a popular name, oh, he must be a nice person, she must be a nice person. We're in a mess. Thank God we're seeing a lot of successes. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Congressman Barletta, and let's get to the meat of things. Does he really say, do things, or did Washington change him? We'll be back right after this.
We want to once again show our law enforcement and first responders the respect they deserve. We want to take care of our vets. We want to honor our military. We want to secure our borders. We want to put an end to illegal immigration once and for all. And we want to take a knee to pray and stand for the flag. Help me help President Trump drain the swamp and make America great again. Thank you.
I'm Lou Barletta, and I approve this message. I'm Lou Barletta, and I approve this message.
You know them, the do-nothings, the lazy ones, the slackers. Yet somehow they still grab a paycheck, like Bob Casey. For decades, Casey's been sleeping on the job, writing almost no legislation, and rated one of the least effective senators. Twice. Yet Casey's been paid over $3 million from the taxpayers. Pennsylvania deserves better. On Election Day, let's send Bob Casey a wake-up call.
Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. I'm Sam Lesante, and you can get in touch with me at sam@ssptv.com. I want to welcome a lot of new viewers in different counties that we haven't been in. We've been on since 1994 with many, many shows. And go to our website at ssptv.com, and you'll see all the shows we produce, as well as, if you don't have cable, go to YouTube, subscribe to SSPTV, and you can watch all of our shows. And incidentally, folks, they're also translated in Spanish. So you'll be able to get a full understanding of what we're doing here. My guest today is Congressman Lou Barletta, running for the U.S. Senate in the state of Pennsylvania. If you just tuned in, I highly advise that you listen to the show, because we're talking about actual facts. Okay, so Congressman, we talked about, you know, some of the things that you've encountered in Washington. Now, you get in Washington and you begin to see the swamp. Okay, so now what happens is, you start putting some things together. So what will you think some of your accomplishments are before we get to some of the issues right now in the state of Pennsylvania?
Well, so one of the things that I think is most important to most of the people who didn't know me, it was bringing my business background and applying it to Washington and trying to save taxpayer money. So I was named the chairman of a subcommittee on transportation and infrastructure, and every federal building in the country comes under my jurisdiction. So I began looking at the leases that the federal agencies were negotiating, and what I found was the first federal building I went into to look at, for every federal employee that worked there, they had 1,500 square feet of space per employee. Literally almost a house to work in. And I began thinking, what are we paying for this? What is this costing the taxpayer, this wasted space? And looked at the lease. Instead of negotiating a long-term lease, because it's a buyer's market, people would love to have a federal agency in their building. They were literally renewing in place because they had nice offices, and we said we're changing that. When your lease expires, you're moving out. 180 square feet of space or less per employee, and you're going to negotiate up to a 10-year lease. And in just 4 years, in the agencies who had to renew their leases, we've now saved the taxpayers $3.8 billion. That's $1 billion in just moving them into smaller spaces. I've been doing a lot of work on the opioid epidemic. Every 20 minutes, Sam, a baby is born addicted. I mean, that is such a sad thought of what's happening. So I've done a lot of work with opioid addiction. Did a lot of work with disaster relief, pre-disaster mitigation. In Pennsylvania, we get a lot of flooding in Pennsylvania. And those of you who are watching your show know how many times we have these reoccurring floods. I finally, after years of working on it, convinced the government that we should be spending this money before a disaster happens. For every dollar we spend before a disaster happens doing pre-disaster mitigation, we save the taxpayer $4 to $8 on the back end.
So where are we with the economy? Where are we with unemployment? Where are we with people getting more in their paychecks?
Sam, the economy is soaring, and it's because of the policies of President Trump and lessening of some of the regulations that have hurt so many businesses, chased them not only out of Pennsylvania but into other countries. Right now the unemployment's at 3.9%, GDP is over 4%. Black unemployment's at an all-time low. Hispanic unemployment's at an all-time low. Women's unemployment's at a 64-year low. There are actually more jobs than people who are unemployed. The small business confidence is at an all-time high. Consumer confidence is at an all-time high. Wages are increasing, and they're going to continue to increase because there's going to be a competition for employees. So that means wages are going to continue to go. Why would we want to stop this? Why would we want to get in the way and go back to the policies that watch so many people in Pennsylvania fear that they were going to lose their job, get paid less money, less hours? The policies, this is what I want to do. I want to continue the policies that are putting more money in the pocket of people here in Pennsylvania, and my opponent wants to go back to the policies that so many of us were afraid we were going to lose our jobs.
One of the things that you've been very instrumental with in helping in the northeastern Pennsylvania is working with Atlantic Carbon. Adam Wilson in his group. Okay, and we could go into a whole story on that, but here's a company that has done so much for the environment and for the energy, etc. Would not be around today if Hillary Clinton would have won. Am I correct in saying that?
You're absolutely correct. I mean, so many of the coal companies were literally hanging on by a thread, waiting for some relief. Now they're thriving again. Now the opportunities, we're cleaning up the environment by mining again, creating new jobs. And when you look at coal and natural gas, Pennsylvania's opportunities could never be any better. We have to keep that going.
Where are the basic issues between you and your opponent?
So I was for the tax cuts, putting more dollars, which the average family in Pennsylvania will see over a $2,000 increase in taxes if Bob Casey's elected, if he gets his way, because he's against the tax cuts.
Senator Casey was against the tax cuts.
That's right.
So therefore, the economy right now, these people getting, I read about the average household is getting about $2,500.
So you'll see an increase of about $2,500 in taxes if
So in other words, the money that they're getting right now, okay, what you're saying is that if you go back, they're taking that money back from you.
Yeah, they were against you having more of your own money. They would rather you send the money to Washington and let them give it out to who they want to give it out to.
So Lou, you've been accused, okay, of cutting. You want to cut Medicare. You want to cut Social Security, and the same. In fact, they took a clip from our show. Where you made some statements. So you want to cut Social Security?
That's ridiculous, Sam. That is so ridiculous. This has been something that the Democrats have been saying to try to scare senior citizens, and we've talked about this many times in the past. Listen, if that's what I have to do to get elected, is to try to scare senior citizens into voting for me because I can't talk about my own accomplishments, well then, then shame on you. I mean, first of all, the best thing that we could do for senior citizens is keep this economy going. Because if we keep the economy going, that means more people are working, which means more people are paying into Social Security, so they don't have to worry. They have to worry if you go back to Bob Casey's economy because people will be unemployed again.
You just said something. I'm in the media, and we're always looking for information. So I know if you were the U.S. Senator and someone was running against you, okay, like a Lou Barletta, and someone said, hey, Senator Barletta, I want to have a debate with you. How would you react to that?
Well, of course, you would want to. And the people should have. People of Pennsylvania should be able to see the differences before they go to vote for each one who's ever going to represent them in the Senate. And remember why this is so important, Sam, because one vote in the Senate could be the difference. If I was there instead of Bob Casey, Obamacare would be gone today. Remember what Obamacare did to people here in Pennsylvania. We saw our premiums go up 120%, and our deductibles are through the roof. So people have to realize what they're voting for, and that's why debates are so important.
Have you asked for debates?
We did. We thought we should have 6, one in each media market. There are 6 different media markets in Pennsylvania. They have agreed to do 2, one in Pittsburgh and one in Philadelphia.
Okay, so here again, it's a matter of getting information. So in closing, why should I vote for Lou Barletta for U.S. Senate?
Well, because the difference between me again and Senator Casey, I was a mayor that supported the rule of law in this country. He supports sanctuary cities. I want to take care of Americans first. He's concerned about illegal immigrants. I believe that you should have more of your own money. He wants to raise taxes and have you send more money to Washington. Our economy under these policies are giving more opportunities and more money, wage increases and better jobs to people. His economy will take us back to where we were, where there were more people on food stamps, than before. So there's a big difference between what I believe in and what Senator Casey believes in.
Congressman Barletta, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Okay, there's never a time I've called that you have not responded. Folks, LouBarletta.com, and you get as much information as you can. Let's deal with the facts. Remember, I don't care who you vote for on November 6th. It's going to change your life. November 6th will change your life. I'm guaranteeing that. So please check all the facts and go and vote November 6th. Thanks for joining us.